Follow up is one of the most talked about and least done parts of sales. People know it matters, and yet it's where so many deals quietly die. Welcome to Deals with Heels. I'm Deborah, your host. Today's guest has spent decades inside sales conversations, from the front lines to senior leadership, watching where momentum builds and where it breaks down. Wanda Allen works with entrepreneurs and sales professionals on one of the hardest, most misunderstood parts of the sales process, follow up. Not follow up as pressure, but follow up as relationship building, clarity, and trust. Today, we're talking about why follow up creates so much emotional friction, why people get it wrong sometimes, and how to follow up in a way that feels confident, human, and aligned. Wanda, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We talked months ago,
Mhm.
and I invited her to be on the show because we had such a great conversation about sales and follow up. And you're finally here. I'm so happy we made it.
Yes, I
It's
am
like
too.
a little time warp thing where you think about something and then suddenly you're there. I want to start out talking about what follow up really is, kind of dive into that a little bit. What do most people misunderstand about the purpose of follow up?
The purpose is servicing, servicing that prospect. That is what you're doing. So it's customer service. Well, think of it as prospect service. When you don't follow up, when you said you would, when you're supposed to, when they ask you to, guess what? You're providing terrible service. And the other purpose of follow up is that is the only way. Typically, you don't know your prospects, they're new people in your world for the most part. When you follow up, that is your opportunity to get to know them, for them to get to know you, to start building that relationship, to start building trust. If you follow up when you're supposed to, they're going to start trusting you. And that just speaks volumes and can put you head and shoulders above most and just about guarantee that you're the one that's going to get the business because you do what you're supposed to, you follow up, you service the prospect, and you're getting to know them.
It sounds like we're talking about connection, right?
Yeah,
Building
connection.
that kind of common connection
Yeah.
that we get. And it ties in what I've been talking a lot about, demand building instead of branding. And it's the opportunity for you to continue the prep work, because demand building is the prep work. What do you want them to know before you actually sit down and plan to ask for the business? Right?
Yes.
All of those things. You have the opportunity when you follow up to somebody, not just after the sales call, but when you meet them, the follow up also, you have the opportunity to do the prep work to build demand.
Yes. And I love that you use the word opportunity because people get so downtrodden when they have follow up. My gosh, I got this follow up work to do. Are you kidding me? That's opportunity. That should put a spring in your step. Not having follow up work to do is what should get you down because that means you don't have any opportunities before you. And then another way to look at it is I call from the time you meet the prospect until the time they say yes or no, you're in what I call the holding pattern. And that's where most people get discouraged, but that's where the work takes place. But when I say don't get discouraged, that is invaluable time. That is your time to shine because you're going to show the prospect how important they are to you, how you can support them and or their business with the product or service you sell, and who you are as a sales professional. So it's one of the best times in the whole sales process. And just putting my goal is to always give a different angle on truly what follow up is, what it means, and why you got to do it if you want to make getting business so much easier.
Where do you see it usually break down at?
The number one place is in between the ears, and it's fear. There's so much fear associated with following up. Fear of rejection, fear of not knowing what to say, fear of being uncomfortable. And the number one fear is fear of being pushy. I hear that all the time. If I keep following up, I feel like I'm being pushy. Fear of appearing desperate. People think, well, if I keep following up, they're going to think I'm desperate for business. So it all starts there. in between the ears, and none of which is to be true. Most people are not going to be pushy. But what feeds that fear is they have that pushy salesperson in their mind that they don't want to be. So they go so far to the opposite end of the spectrum to make sure they're not that pushy salesperson that they end up taking very little, if any, action at all.
And they
So,
rarely ask for the sale, for
oh,
sure. And
yeah.
it's a great transition into the next segment, which is the emotional friction. And part of that, I think, is also the messaging, right? If I'm calling with selling you in mind, then, and I haven't done the prep work, right? So if you haven't done the prep work and built demand and formed a connection, then your enthusiasm comes across as pressure. It just does. Whether you want it to or not, it does. It's like, why are you telling me all of these things? Because you haven't taken the time for all of the follow up. You already touched on a little bit of this, and I want to talk about and name the things that people don't talk about. Like, why does follow up feel so uncomfortable to us? Why do we have that? And I think it's not only about the sales process, but somehow it's a fear response to us.
Yeah, there's such a negative connotation on following up, and there really shouldn't be for the reasons that I've already mentioned. But if you really just get your arms around the fact that the number one way to bring in more business is to follow up. You got to get the lead. Okay, you have to do lead generation, but that doesn't bring you business. Networking doesn't bring you business. It plants the seed. If you do nothing with it, it's going to go dormant. And so you want to be that person who pursues it, nurtures it, because you want to get it to a yes or a no. Not everybody you talk to is going to be interested in your product or service, and accepting that too, and that goes for all of us. But the job is to find the ones who are interested. And to get to the ones who are, you're going to come across people who aren't. So just putting that armor on, knowing it's not about you, you're looking for the right fit. You're looking for the right prospect who is interested and who can afford your product or service. In the most simplistic term, that's what your job is. To go out and find that prospect.
Right. And even if the person that you're communicating with and meeting with, your prospect, doesn't buy, if you've done your job and
Yeah.
built enthusiasm, then they're a potential referral source and a future buy because they remember you and they remember you were kind and you didn't let go of the connection, right? Following
Yeah.
up even after a no can be very valuable.
Very valuable. And even in the midst of when they tell you no, you could wrapping it up with, well, I certainly understand and I appreciate the time you've given me. I've enjoyed getting to know you. If I can ever support you in the future, I'm here for you. That's like, wow. So it's so warm, it's welcoming, and you leave the door open. If either you want to go back to them or they want to come back to you.
I agree so much with that. What
Yeah.
stories do we tell ourselves in our minds that prevent us and kind of justify us not following up? What are some of those stories that we repeat to ourselves? Because that's all about mindset, the stories we repeatedly tell ourselves. So
Yes.
let's talk about those and maybe identify a couple of them.
Yeah, well, the number one is, well, they'll let me know if they're ready when they're ready. And it's like, no, 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 don't do that. Don't do that. That is just such a big fear. Well, they didn't really seem interested. Well, they haven't responded to my call or my email, so they must have gone with somebody else. I I don't think I presented correctly. All this noise that goes on in the head. And what it's really doing is trying to justify not following up and with no validity, credibility to the stories that are being told in between the ears. And
Right.
so if you just focus on the action that you need to take and let the chips fall where they may. If they ignore you, if they say no, if they say, I need more time, you have no control over that. And so just focus on what you need to do. Stay the course because your job is to get to a yes or a no. That's what you're looking for. And by the way, no is the second best answer you can get. And people are so afraid of no. It's rejection, right? And they take it personally. But I'll tell you, I will take a no over an ignore any day of the week.
So
Because
will I.
when a
Rejoice in the rejection because
yes,
now
yeah,
the faster you can find
move
out that
on.
that's not somebody, the faster you can step over that dime and pick up the dollar standing behind them.
Yes,
And, oh, it's such a big deal. Get the rejections. Keep the connection, though. If you
yes,
made the connection, then they can drive other referrals to you. Just because they didn't buy from you doesn't mean they won't send you business. I had a great referral partner and they weren't my client. They had somebody else that did their marketing. I'm not the only good marketing person around, but I said, I understand you have somebody good. I would just like to be in your referral rotation. And it pops that bubble of oh my God, they're still trying to convince me. No, I just went on the list and I got so many great referrals by just being honest and connecting with them in a way. If you need me, I'm here. I understand you have someone great. That's fantastic. Maybe you know someone that I'll be a better fit for.
yeah, yeah.
So the connection, don't let go of it because you're too nervous to follow up. It sounds like it's more of a confidence thing than it is a skill.
It is a confidence, and I'm glad you used that word because it's talked about so little in sales, but it's so crucial. Because who doesn't love a salesperson that's confident in who they are and the product or service they sell? That is what we gravitate towards. That is who we want to do business with. Not the ones that's shrinking and hiding and I don't know and full of doubt. It doesn't mean you don't ever have doubts or fears or concerns. That would not be human, okay? But they're just not in the driver's seat. You don't allow them to prevent you from doing your job. And if your job is to bring in business, to bring in sales, your job is to follow up. And if you're not following up, you're not doing your job. And that can be labeled as unprofessional. And so, following up, another angle, when you follow up, you're being professional. That's what you're doing. That's what it is.
You are being professional. If I said I was
Yes.
going to follow up, I do what I say I'm going to do. And it may be uncomfortable, but I still follow up and have the meeting or the phone call or the text or the email, whatever it may be. And that goes a long way for building trust.
It does. It really does. And so it's another good angle to come from.
Let's talk about what good follow up communication actually looks like to the prospect.
Well, I say the most efficient and effective tool that we have at our disposal, and it's the one that's used the least, is the telephone as its originally intended purpose. And there's so much fear around the phone, so much fear today. And, oh, no one answers their phone, or I don't want to bother them, or, if I leave a voicemail, no one listens to their voicemail. And I just say, what is it, 7, 8 billion people on planet Earth? No one answers their phone. I mean, come on. It's such an extreme comment. Yes, you get voicemail a lot, but leave them. But people still answer their phone. The reason it's so effective is because I can cover with you in a 5-minute conversation what could take 3 emails, texts, or DMs in 2 days. And you're going to tell me things on the phone that you will not tell me in an email, text, or DM. And then, use the electronic means of communication as secondary. But because there's so many inherent fears with follow up, I believe people hide behind their email, text, DMs. Because when I say pick the phone up and call them, you want me to talk to them? Yeah, I do. Because if you are only ever a digital communication source to that prospect, you're not going to have much depth to that relationship. You're just
No,
not.
and it's
Yeah,
a
technology.
really great way to misunderstand somebody is to
Yes,
communicate via text. You can
yeah,
come across so harsh and salesy and pushy when that's not your intent. But when you type just the words without any inflection, without any care, it can really come across that way. What do you say to people? There's the generation that's younger. I'm Gen X. There's the generation that's younger than me, and then so millennials and Gen Z. And some of them, I mean, I've had to text an HR issue because I couldn't get them to call me back before. I mean, it just can be so. What do you recommend for that when you have
Yeah,
somebody that is just not their preferred choice?
yeah. I mean, so I had a client say, "Don't want to, don't call me. Just text me." That's the way I communicate, and that's fine. And I text her most of the time, but I do throw a phone call in every now and again. I want her to hear my voice. Hopefully she'll answer. Chances are she won't. But it's so whatever. If they tell you, listen, text me, then of course you're going to respect that and you're going to text them. But again, see if you can have coffee with here's the deal. We're human beings. We need human interaction for the health and wellness of our relationships. We cannot be all digital. And so for the younger generation, if you are willing to bring into the mix human interaction, plus it doesn't mean you go away from your text or whatever your preference is, you're going to stand head and shoulders above the rest because you're dealing with other people besides just your generation. You're dealing with other generations too. You want that mixed bag of goods. You don't want only one way, all the time, because it's just not as effective.
And if you've got a prospect that's considering being a client, they want to be able to communicate with you however they want to communicate with you.
Yes,
You have got to be available as a business owner or a salesperson. You've got to be available on multiple avenues for them to get in touch with you, or you are missing the boat. I have people that are colleagues, not prospects, colleagues that if they don't like to talk on the phone and I want to give a nuanced answer, then I leave an audio message on their
hmm.
text.
Oh, nice.
And I I mean, that's the way they prefer it, and I am then allowed to have nuance in what I say and have inflection in it, so it just isn't a flat statement. I have a tendency to be direct, even when talking, so text can really come across that way, and I haven't tried that in prospecting at all or with someone I don't know pretty well. What do you think about that?
I think it's great because it does humanize it. And you're still on their preferred choice. So a text, and it's actually easier for them to listen than to read. And
Mhm.
I think it's very powerful. You can also do that on LinkedIn. So if you have somebody, there's a lot of LinkedIn people and same with Facebook. You can do these kinds of things, and it's so much more efficient for you to talk than it is to type. We can all type pretty fast today, but if you're having to explain something, it's just so much easier to do it verbally. And who wants to read a 4 paragraph email or text? None of us do.
I don't think they
And
do. I'll be honest. I
yeah,
think a lot of times they don't read it if it's long.
yeah,
Their
yeah,
attention span, there's a reason they're texting because they like short communications.
yep, yep. And I agree. I don't think any of us, I don't want to get 5 paragraph email. Let's figure out an easier way to communicate because I don't want to have to respond. If I've got to respond at 8 different points in that email, and then I got to go reread, and it's just too much work.
Right, where you have to like, "My responses are in blue," so that
Yeah.
you can just type right afterwards sometimes in there. I agree with that too. My friends would tell you, I will say, "Well, I gotta read this Steinbeck novel I got via email so that I can figure out what." Or I'll apologize, "I'm so sorry I sent that Steinbeck novel. I just had to get all of it out, and I know it's a long text, sorry." Because that happens sometimes too. I wanna talk, next just about some practical clarity, like what needs to be clear to someone before you follow up?
You want to be very clear about the purpose of your outreach. Is it to see if they've made their decision? Is it to get an appointment on the books? Is it to see if they talk to their managing partner? Uh, so be clear because when you're clear, you're going to know exactly what to say. And so communication is problematic, not just younger generation, all generations, because everything's done electronically. People aren't even spelling words out today, on and on. So the whole communication thing can trip people up. So that's how you get around it. Be very clear what your the purpose is, and then say what you mean and ask for what you want. Period. That doesn't mean you're rude, abrasive, unprofessional. You're kind, you're professional, but you're saying what you mean. You're asking for what you want. You're not wasting your time or theirs on fluff. Because if you spend time in fluff, that's when you're going to get tongue tied and twisted. And that's where the fear comes about. I don't know what to say. So clarity
And
on
you've
purpose.
lost connection, right?
Yeah.
You've
Yes.
lost
Yes.
connection. I'm
Yeah.
always, if I lose track of what I am going to say, then, or what I was thinking about saying, then I lean into curiosity and ask a question. And that will get the conversation going a little bit. I also like to break the ice sometimes if I haven't talked to someone in a while and I'm circling back around through my list again. And I like to focus on referrals if I do that, but I also like to solicit help. If you ask somebody for help with something, even something small, it just builds this trust now between the two of you. Do you think those types of messaging can help in a follow up situation, or do you think it's better to just stay straight on business?
Well, what I suggest is the first 5 follow-ups are about business. Getting the appointment, seeing if they've made their decision, finding out what they want the next step to be. The first 5 contacts. And then after that, you can start mixing it up.
I mean, unless you're prospecting, right? Follow up's really big with prospecting too. But if I've never pitched to someone and I'm just trying to build a connection with them,
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah, then
because that
yes.
kind of follow up sometimes even
Yeah.
more important.
Yeah, yeah, yes, definitely. I agree. And our human nature kicks in. We want to help. That's just, the way
Yep.
we naturally are.
Most people, it's
Most
an
people.
ego thing. Someone, oh, they want
Yeah.
my help. That's,
Yes.
because they're so good at whatever they do. Likely you've been building demand already. When you ask someone else for help, now it feels like a two-way street.
Yes. Yeah.
And that, in an odd way, builds trust for you when you ask someone else for help. You feel more real, more human, easy to connect to and to communicate with.
Yeah. Yes. And you're touching that person. And touch points are always good and important.
And you need a lot of them these days. When I first started in marketing, 3 to 5 times you need to touch point, but it is not the same. You got to have 15 sometimes before people will make a decision, and they get a lot of them really fast. So all of them are really important.
Yeah. The statistics that I've seen today is that 80% of sales are made between the 5th and 12th contact. And I think that's very accurate, but 90% of people quit after 2. And I
Mhm.
think that's very accurate. And I believe the primary reason 90% quit after 2 is because the prospect hasn't responded and they don't know what to do, or they must not be interested, or they want someone else, and so they drop it. And that gets you become the hamster on the wheel. You get a lead, you follow up twice, prospect doesn't respond, you drop it. You have to go get another lead now, follow up twice, prospect doesn't respond, you drop it. And that's where the hamster wheel shows up, and that gets exhausting. Whereas, and then your pipeline never grows because prospects are falling off prematurely. Leads are falling off prematurely simply because there's not the sustainability to giving that lead a chance to turn
Right,
into.
because however you generated the lead, we all generate leads for people to sell us things every day. But then we get busy and we don't have time to talk about it yet. And it may be down the road a little bit. And if you didn't keep in contact a little bit, then now that they're making a decision, you're not top of mind. You're not anywhere in their messaging to communicate with them. And so sometimes it takes a while, depending on what their buying personality is. Maybe they're just waiting for a little bit more info and you keep sending them more info. Those thinkers, they're not talkers, they're thinkers. So they're sometimes really reading what you send. They're just not ready to comment yet.
Yeah, but they're seeing your name, and that's important. And that's the thing. So if when you, I always call this the danger zone. Oh, they'll let me know when they're ready. So if it's been 6 months since you talked to them and now they're ready, they're going to go, was her name, was it Deborah or was it Donna or I can't, Dorothy? And they can't find your contact information. And the next person they meet that does what you do gets the business.
They do. They get all of your demand building because you didn't bother to follow up with them. You
Yeah. And
certainly do.
yes.
Um, we're getting kind of close to the end, so I definitely want to hit on some personal insight. What did you learn the hard way about follow up?
It's got to get done. So I had a corporate career, and when I went into sales, I'd never been in sales before. The bank sent me to one class and they threw me out with the sharks and it was sink or swim and I was sinking. And I got an opportunity for a huge client, potential client. It was a prospect referral source gave me $1 million plus in deposits. I mean, it was just platinum. And I thought, well, I was always in the bottom of the sales team. I was always in the bottom three. Every month, everyone's sales performance gets shared for all to see.
Right, up
And there
on the
was one,
board at the sales
yes,
meeting,
yes,
sometimes
yes,
weekly and
yes, yep,
chronological. I mean, they
yep.
create that kind of competitive environment, but it is such a disservice
It,
to
it,
a huge portion of the people in the room.
oh, it's terrible. And there was one month I was dead last. I was in our sales team averaged around 12. Well, when I got this lead, I said no more because I knew if I could get him into the bank, it would change everything for me. And he was talking to two other banks. And so what I learned is not following up is why I was struggling, why I was sinking, why every month I was scared. Oh God, where am I going to, how low am I going to be on the list? Am I going to lose my job? And it was terrible. So that's, and I just got jolted. Kind of got, the got hit by the 2x4 when I had an opportunity for Randy's business. Like this I can't keep doing this. It was so stressful. And
It is
follow-up was
so
the answer.
just, I mean, the hardest thing about doing it is just doing it. Is just doing it. Once you start and you start making those connections again, even if that person isn't your client yet, you can always ask for a referral. Do you know
Yes,
someone that I might be a
yes,
fit for that this service can help? I know it's not the right time for you yet. Who do you know? And then you're off. They're like, okay, the pressure's off me. Who can I put in the grease?
yeah, that's
It's a terrible way to say it, but in our minds, I don't think anybody really thinks that, but it's a mindset thing. It's the emotions behind it that happen that it just pops that stress and pressure bubble off of them when you ask if they can help someone, if you can help someone else. And what do they immediately think of? What does she do?
mhm,
Roll through. What do they do?
yes, yep,
Right. And so now you've got them thinking again about all of your good things, all of your sales
yeah,
points.
yes.
Um, how did your perspective change about the follow up and sales and how you motivated people when you moved into leadership?
It pained me. It pained me to see how hard people work to get leads and then do nothing with them. They're not closing the business they need to. They're not making the money they need to. They're loaded with fear. They don't know how to follow up. Everyone knows they need to follow up, but a lot of people don't know how. How do you do it? How do you follow up for the fourth time? And it just really pained me. And when I left the bank, the industry speaker, a friend of mine said, you should become a speaker and teach people how you follow up. And I did. I just thought it doesn't have to be this hard. I know the struggle because I went through it and it doesn't have to be. And that's what drives me. It's just I'm all about systems, structure and systems and order. There has to be order because if there's not, the fur never stops flying. And that is a very difficult environment in which to live. And, people run 100 miles an hour in 10 different directions. That's become the norm. Get to the end of the day, I'm exhausted, don't feel like I got anything done. And it becomes this vicious cycle. So the pain of others is what drives me and has moved me into like that leadership role of helping everyone I can.
And what is the most common problem that you see for people? You talked about it's that they don't like putting it off. Oh, they'll call me if they are interested.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
the most
So
common mindset fail that you see?
it's the mindset fail, but there's 2 other things. They don't make it a top priority, and it just has to be. I promise you can come up with 10 reasons every day why you can't do your follow-up work. It's easy to push aside, but it's detrimental to future business. So you must make it a priority. Sounds like common sense, but it's not very common. Okay, so do people don't make it a priority. And then the other thing is you got to use a CRM. You just have to, because if you're not using a CRM, it is a much more challenging process.
I get the like follow-up messages off of LinkedIn. Typically, they're the ones where you immediately get a sales message as soon as they follow you. And then they go through and they're very good about the system. They're obviously using a CRM, but then they'll start saying, "This is my last email."
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just so negative. Everything's really negative based. And I'll get, I used to hardly ever get anyone wanting to manage my show or do the promotion part. But after you get about 100 episodes, lots more people want to because it becomes easier. It's surprising to me how negative the is. Right? I mean, I
Yeah,
wouldn't want to follow up if I had to be negative all the time either. Adding a positive message to it goes a long ways in making a connection, don't you think?
it does. Being positive, yes, putting a positive spin on it. And also, if you're strictly automated, it is not a good look. And you can tell, we can tell what you just described me, that's like automation. And we live in an incredible techie time. People want to automate everything. You can't. I mean, it has its place and it's great, but you can't. So you have to get out of the mindset, oh, I want everything automated. It's just not going to flow as well. It's not going to work as well. So there's a mixture. So systems, like there's automation and then there's systems. How do you consistently stay in touch? How do you follow up when you're being ignored? What scripting do I use? They're just, their structure, their root processes and routines. You know what to do. You don't have to think. And automation is a tool. Technology is a tool, but it's not a be all and end all. And it's a be all and end all for a lot of people.
It is. And I think it's that avoidance of wanting to build the relationship. And people don't understand that if you don't want to be a pushy salesperson, then you are a relationship salesperson, whether you want to be or not. You're either high pressure close or you're a relationship salesperson. And so building that relationship sales, I think people underestimate how valuable that is.
You too. And on both sides, you know? And
Yes.
at the end of the day, the better, stronger relationships you have, the better and stronger your business is going to be or your sales. And so relationship management is as crucial as follow up because without relationships, you don't have business. And what so many people do is once business gets closed, they drop the relationship like a hot potato and they're off looking for their next new, forgetting about, well, wait a minute, what about all these other people that you took time to get to know and prospect and convert and close? And now you're just going to let them go. And I'm not saying you stay in touch with every person you've ever done business with. Those are valuable relationships that you've put a lot of time and effort and energy into. But people let them go like, it's dropping a penny. It's
I know
crazy.
somebody who, when they get a new job or start the new career, they delete all the contacts from the
Oh
previous
my,
one.
oh no, no.
I was like, what?
Oh
Would you do
no.
what? Because one of the first things any sales job you get is to work your warm market. That
Yeah.
is your warm market. Come on, you guys. That is the warm market. And if you stayed connected with them, they're excited to hear what you're doing. They're excited to hear from you and to touch base with you. And if they're not a client, they may know someone that is. That follow up is just critical.
Yeah, so it's not about what you do. And when it comes to relationships, it is not about what you do. I've got clients today that were my speaking clients, my coaching clients, that were my banking clients. But the
Yes.
only reason that happened is because I really liked them as a banker and I wanted to continue to have a relationship. So yeah, it's one-sided if and you're always going to be in the hunt for relationships when you let everybody go.
Yes, and then you're chasing and trying to build from scratch, and that is just not necessary. And you have hopefully, I know you've opened my eyes. Every time we talk, I learn more about follow up from you. And I'm a creative person. So sometimes living in systems, there's like that happy balance of I need a system in place to keep me on track. But if it gets too rigid, then I'm going to rebel and I'm not going to be in the system at all. So finding that happy place is really critical.
It is. And, we're all wired differently. And so, creatives and free spirits, the word system will give you a hive. Okay. It's like, oh, no, or structure. I hate that. It's claustrophobic. And, not so much that you can't breathe, but enough that you're not slipping and sliding all over the place. Because when you're slipping and sliding, that's when every day's going to go by. Oh my gosh, I'm not getting anything done and I don't know what's wrong and going in 10 different directions and on it goes. So just be open because to having some kind of structure because they're going to organize you, they're going to make you more efficient, they're going to make you more consistent and all of that's really good when it comes to business.
It is. And it gives you a great structure for, okay, I'm going to get this stuff done and I'm going to have time to do this stuff that I'm creative at. And it separates it. And actually, for me, getting the nuts and bolts stuff done that we don't often want to do, this stuff in the system is very empowering to me because I'm like, hell yes, I've checked that off my list. And
Yeah.
it can
Yeah,
be very empowering.
it
Wow,
is.
what a great conversation. We've been going almost 40 minutes already. And boy, when I get at a good sales, we can really go. Probably you and I talk for a couple of hours and have one of those Joe Rogan 3 hour long episodes. But that's not what we're here for. Before we close out, tell us how we can find out more about your services and about more information about following up and all the ideas.
My website, followupsalesstrategies.com. It's a
And
one-stop
we
shop. I've got some freebies there. I do an assessment call. I've got a 7-day challenge, just different stuff there. So yeah, you can
And I
prove
think
it.
you sent me at least one of your freebies, and we'll link to it and your website in the show notes. If someone wants to contact you, is that LinkedIn the best place?
Go to my website. There's a contact me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We will link to that and, of course, all of the information about our show in the show notes. If today's conversation resonated, especially the idea that sales is about trust and connection and not pressure, then I have a free resource for you to download as well. It's called the Human Sales Playbook, and it is designed to help you build confidence, clarity, and trust throughout the sales process in a way that feels real and aligned. I'll link to it in the show notes as well, along with my websites and social media links. So until next time, stand strong in your power, especially when it gets uncomfortable. And we're out. Yay, we did it!